All right, so today we're going to be talking about gender roles and their impact throughout human development and what that means for individuals. So, as we jump right into it, I hope you have a wonderful week and let's get started. So, let's first begin by defining what gender roles are. So, gender roles are actually socially constructed expectations on how individuals should think, act, behave, feel based on their gender. These expectations are actually not generally biologically determined. They are actually learned through social expectations and experiences. So society puts these pressures on individuals or the expectation that this is someone or this is how someone should be thinking, acting, behaving, and feeling. However, research does show that children begin forming these ideas very early on in their life. So, for example, research conducted in 1981 demonstrates that children actively organize information using what we may consider gender schemas. And these are mental frameworks that guide how they interpret the world based on their gender and based on other people's gender. Also, research conducted in 2016 found that parents' behaviors, not just what they say, but how they act, also play a major role in shaping how children form gender roles and attitudes in their life. So overall, from a very young age, children are not just passively observing kind of what's happening in their life regarding gender roles. They're actively learning and interpreting these experiences and then applying them to their own gender identity. So if we think about early childhood, gender roles begin to start taking shape and form through everyday interactions that they have. So in 1978, research found that, parents respond actually very differently to children's behaviors depending on whether or not they align with traditional gender roles and expectations. So let me give you a little bit of an example. So behaviors that match gender norms are often reinforced, while those that are not are generally discouraged. So beyond parents, though, siblings also play a large role and an important role in gender identity and also like gender roles in addition. So research conducted in 2001 showed that siblings influence each other's gendered behaviors and attitudes over time. Whether that's they are observing their behaviors, they're observing their lack of behavior depending on their gender. So those gender schemas are also influenced by sibling relationships. However, these early experiences generally have lifelong effects on gender identity. So in 2021, research was conducted with a longitudinal study throughout time, and it shows that gender-typed play in preschools predicts interest within adolescents, not only like occupational interests that are generally maybe where male or females, if we're thinking the two genders, kind of may guide themselves into, and it also determines their interest into adolescence. So this means something as simple as types of toys that children play with can also influence their future career. So gender identity does have longitudinal influences. So kind of as we kind of wrap this all together, early childhood experiences are very crucial to early development in gender roles, and they shape behavior, preferences, and overall identity. So now let's look into adolescence and identity formation, because this is, according to Erickson, a big part of the adolescent kind of stages that they are in. They're working to identify and figure out who they truly are. So as children enter adolescence, gender roles become more pronounced and more impactful and important to them. Individuals in 1990 described this as gender intensification. So where social pressures that are placed on our adolescents are then to conform to gender norms. So if you are more, if you identify as male, more masculine, female, more feminine. And this increases during puberty. That's the time where self-discovery also occurs. However, at the same time, adolescents are heavily influenced by their social environments, and therefore school and peer groups play a huge, significant role in shaping gender identity within adolescence as well. So I want you to take yourself back to middle school and high school, if maybe some of you work in those areas, and you'll kind of see this and you'll maybe remember some of these significant things as well. We also see that development differences in social and emotional behavior. So for example, in 2018, researchers found that girls in particular tend to have higher levels of empathy and prosocial behaviors over time, which is often linked to gender expectations that are placed on individuals that are surrounding, like how caregivers respond to them, or also emotional expression, what is kind of considered as right or wrong. So during this stage, gender roles are often closely tied to identity formation, self-concept, and also social relationships. So if we also think about it, gender roles don't just stop shaping after adolescence. They often continue into the lifespan, into kind of adulthood, young adulthood, and as we go out through life. So researchers evaluated in 2022, they longitudinally evaluated gender roles and attitudes as they evolve from adolescence to young adulthood. And oftentimes, individuals with these stages become a little bit more egalitarian over time. And however, there are some differences that persist potentially through this time. So they found in this time that these attitudes actually have real-world consequences. They influence educational choices, career paths, family roles that individuals take. Also, research found that gender roles are often transmitted across generations, meaning we learn about gender through our grandparents, great-grandparents, and people generationally farther away than us, meaning that these beliefs and behaviors of parents actually can shape the next gender attitudes. So if we are parents ourselves, we are shaping gender roles within our children. This often highlights a good point, which is that gender roles are not only learned, they are also reproduced over time. And this, of course, then contributes to the long-term patterns that we may see throughout the shaping of gender roles. So as we kind of wrap this all up from research, let's take a step back and look at the big picture. I think that's very important for us when we kind of read these articles and we talk about these different topics in general. So across the studies that we kind of evaluated and some of the research that you are going to be reading is that gender roles are often learned early in life. And through our social interactions, they are often reinforced through these interactions in our early childhood, throughout our adolescence and adulthood. And overall, we are deeply influential across these multiple areas of development that we are often, I don't want to use the word persuaded, but we are often guided to act, behave, think, and feel a certain way. Overall, research does state that children as young as 6 begin to associate intelligence with gender, which can influence academic confidence and interest. So one gender is smarter than the other. Also, researchers in 2019 found that gender stereotypes persist over time. So even as societal attitudes shift, these change over time. So overall, gender roles do shape our cognitive development, such as career aspirations, our behavior, such as play and social roles, and our emotional development, which is empathy and our identity. So in short, gender roles play a powerful role in shaping the people we become, and they overall impact us throughout the lifespan.